Hello, my name is Aaron Edwards, co-founder and market consultant of Santos Springs. We offer grain marketing solutions to producers in multiple countries. Welcome to our W2H grain marketing channel. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I also recommend tapping the bell so you get future notifications. And if you like what you see, hit the like and share this video with other farmers who care deeply about their grain marketing. If you are a corn or soybean farmer, your revenue depends not only on your production, but also the answer to three simple questions: when, how much, and how you sell. One W, when, two H's, how and how much. Our W2H mentorship provides a clear, concise, and custom approach to answering each one of these three questions for your specific farm throughout the year. Before we start this week's content, it's always important to remember that trading in futures products entails significant risk of loss, which must be understood prior to trading and may not be appropriate for all investors. This commentary and the information contained within should be considered market commentary and reflect the opinions of the author. For those of you watching this with a delay, if you are a U.S. corn or soybean farmer and want to stop being held hostage by market uncertainty, let us teach you how to place each one of your bushels in a grain marketing strategy specifically designed to optimize your farm's revenue. Click on the link and we'll work together to see if our W2H mentorship is the right next step for your grain marketing. Hello, this is Aaron Edwards with Santos Springs. It is June 3rd, 2025. Rough day. The last couple of sessions in the market, rain forecasted. We will go over what's going on in the markets in just a little bit, but before that, we want to start with recommendations. We always want that bias towards action. And man, this is getting to me as the clock ticks away and we don't get the spring rally. You can tell by the title of the video. The question is, will we still get a spring rally? Can we still get a spring rally, or has that ship sailed? So once again this week, we're going to go no action recommended, but the calendar is definitely twisting our arm to make sure that we get the work done that we need to get done. Sooner or later, we're going to need to take action just because the calendar is creeping up on us and clamping up on us, and we're going to need to start being active. But for this week, once again, no action recommended. Let's go over how hopeful can we actually be about a spring rally, or should we just kiss all that hope goodbye and say it's not going to happen? Not this year. So let's take a look at it. The big picture paints 1,000 words. Let me pull up the image that I want you guys to see. Planting is basically done. We're at 93% on the corn. I want to say 87 on the beans. Home stretch of planting. It's looking like the lion's share of the U.S. crop is going to be planted within the window, on time, in decent conditions. And really almost every week, what we've seen out of the markets, let me go ahead and pull up a marker here and get this in red. This image is from World Ag Weather in red there, World Ag Weather. What we've seen week after week is the 1 week forecast is basically rain all over the Corn Belt. So yeah, you miss a day, you get a day, but on average, we've seen plenty of rain, and it's really hard when you have week after week of rain forecasted and week after week of that planting progress clipping away. It's very hard to get the market excited. It's very hard to get speculators nervous. So the way we handle it is we build a marketing plan portfolio, and on that portfolio, like I said, there's some strategies that we're holding on to because we were waiting for a spring rally, and now spring, there's not that many weeks left in spring, right? So how optimistic can we really get? We get USDA report coming out next week. how excited can we really get about this market? But we build the portfolio, then we look at seasonals, funds. I mentioned seasonals with the spring rally, and then we look at technicals. So let's just talk a little bit about seasonality already. Let's shift gears over to the funds and then the technical analysis, and then we'll bring it all home. Let's start with the soybean market. And we'll go ahead and get a marker here. Let's go with blue. Where's their blue? There we go, blue. And pull this to the bottom. Okay, so the good news is speculators are still long soybeans. They're still, and they actually increased from 2 weeks ago to last week. They actually increased their long position. So there is some degree of optimism about the potential for soybean prices from speculators. As I've said multiple times, if you look at negative 50,000 contracts to positive 50,000 contracts, that would be negative 50,000 to positive 50,000. You look basically over the last 6 to 9 months, we've spent a lot of our time kind of in that range. And if you look, there's not been a ton to write home about soybeans during that time. We've not seen the big moves. The really big question, and this is where the gray areas of grain marketing can get so tough, is will we see these speculators seasonally sell down and just absolutely destroy the bean market? Are we getting a 9 or an 8 in front of beans? And will we just see this bean market absolutely collapse down if they get another sold position? We're already at a lower price level, struggling to stay in the mid-10s. If they go really pound this bean market into the ground, we're in trouble. The flip side of that is they've been very comfortable staying long. They're still betting it's going higher. They haven't flipped that position. So what if they get a little more excited in that direction? Well, we could maybe get high 10s, maybe up over 11, and that can happen quick. Again, will we get the spring rally? That's the central question to this video. And is it still possible? Let's take a look at the markets. Let me the black marker, here we go. Okay, so in the markets, if you look kind of over that 6 to 8 month period where I said where they're just sideways, you can kind of box that in. That's this whole period there. And you see there's really not a ton of excitement. A couple of points, and I could even make that a little tighter, which I've done in the past, but if we make that a little tighter, there's a couple of points outside of the of kind of that box, but we're right in the middle of that box, and that box is basically held true. We are in a downtrend. We're below the 200 and the 20-day moving average. We're getting green trade, but how excited are we really about today's green trade? Not very much. Technical analysis, where you kind of study charts, there's some limitations to that, but I'll go ahead and I'm going to draw 2 lines here. One of them would be kind of this, if we want to get a wedge pattern that way. And then the other one would be if we could get a line going like there to there to there. Let's see if that'll straighten it out. There we go. I'll go ahead and get this one straight too. Let's see, there it goes, pulled it up, and then what was it here? Bam. All right, so if we want to kind of look at those wedge patterns, it looks like maybe beans, they've definitely felt resistance. They've got that bar coming down, felt friend of resistance, got the other one coming up. We're still right in that triangle. So if we kind of hold here, up a little, down a little bit, but it's nothing really exciting that would lead us to say we're going to get that spring rally. And as long as there's rain forecasted, the fear is speculators will just say, we're done with this, and we'll sell it off. So definitely holding my breath this week and just saying, I hope I didn't recommend no sales when the message should have been run for the hills. Typically, before a USDA report in June, we'll see that market hovering right around the 20-day moving average. That would be the norm. Actually, before most reports, a lot of times it's right around there. So expecting just a tiny little recovery and then the market not really playing its hand one way or the other would be a very normal result for coming into next week's report, which won't make our life any easier on making decisions. But is it possible we sell off? Yes, I think it's more likely that even if it is going to be a sell-off in a weak market, I think it's more likely we come into next week's report kind of around that 20-day moving average, sitting there. Let's shift gears to corn. Actually, the situation is a little bit more bleak in corn, unfortunately. Let's get that pulled up, and there we go. The corn market, I'm gonna do red. Corn's not good. So the last 3 weeks, last week and the 2 weeks before that, corn, the net position of speculators was actually net sold. The big fear here on corn is that speculators are going to sell this off back down to these lows, and any hope of a spring or summer rally is gone, and corn is just going to get punished, and it's going to be in the low fours or sub 4, and it's just going to, corn market's done. That's the fear, and that's possible. I would say on a little bit, if we're grasping for straws on optimism, speculators did not increase their net sold position. They actually reduced it 1 million metric tons. So it doesn't look like as of last week, they're willing to step on the gas and say, sell, sell, sell. We're out of this. We're done with corn. But it's not great news. And then if we look technically, this is the December corn contract, the new crop corn. I'm going to kind of draw that wedge again. Let me see if I can get the black marker here to make it real pronounced. So, first of all, the level we are at, there's kind of this green line drawn all across it. First of all, it is a value area, and the corn market has not been very comfortable under this. So there's one side of the argument that just says U.S. farmers, they are not excited about selling cash corn that's under $4 in the new crop. They're not going to get in line to say, oh yeah, give me some of that $3.90 corn. There's not going to be selling pressure. And what we're looking at on a lot of cash markets is just barely over $4 corn. For a lot of operations, that doesn't pencil in. So there is a case to be made to say, prices are so low, there will not be selling pressure, so they're not really going to move lower. To some extent, I agree with that, unless speculators say, we're selling it, we're done, we don't care about farmer profitability, and we're going to pound this into the ground. That's obviously the fear. I'm not saying that's, if I really believe that, we would be sell, 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 but the question is, how optimistic can we be about a spring rally? And I want to do a couple of things. First of all, I want to draw that line that we did in soybeans. Let me get that line done over here. Not doing a very good job of it. There we go. Up there, up there, up there. That's that wedge coming down. And then if we want to go grab the low, pretty close to it, and then great. Go grab the low, and then the previous low. See if that'll straighten up. Wow, that's a little off. See if I can do a little bit better. Grab the low, previous low. Oh, I'm not doing a very good job, but I think you get the idea. There we go. We're going to call that good enough, even though it's off. But the idea is that there is this wedge coming down, and that downward pressure on the corn market is quite a bit. It's quite a bit stronger, if you want to think about it that way, than the bean market. I mean, there's really a lot. Corn has struggled anytime to get, since February, any tiny little bump, it really gets hammered off and really gets sold, and we haven't been able to rally. So maybe this little bump here in the corn market in April, maybe that's the one that got away for the spring. I hate to even really call that a rally. It was, I mean, we went from the lows to the middle of the range, but it's just a very heavy market. So if you want to be real bullish, you'll call this a double bottom, and you'll say we've got a double bottom, now we can work higher. But the truth of the matter is we are in a downtrend, and this corn market is heavy. It's kind of back into a value area, and there's not very much reason for optimism on corn with forecasts like what we saw combined with cash markets that aren't great and planting progress that's good. We're gonna have to have something from the weather side if we're gonna hope for a spring rally. And then that's the question. If you're we have 3 weeks left of spring, 1 week of forecasted rains. Unless something comes out of left field, we're going to have to see the rains shut off and this corn crop get stressed real quick. I think if we're really going to have any type of decent corn rally, and as far as price levels, I don't necessarily think we fall over here and get destroyed, but there's the 20-day moving average. You know, if we work up a little bit next week, how much can we really get out of this corn market? Is it possible it just plummets down? And I think it is. This is a market we're going to hold our breath one more week, but this is a market that honestly I'm a little nervous about. All right, let's wrap up with the summary. Let me get the summary and pull up the video here. So corn, seasonally, it is a sell. Beans, seasonally, are a sell. Managed money on corn is short, but not enough to justify. Managed money is short, but not enough to justify selling. Managed money on beans is long, but not enough to justify selling. I guess I should say short, not enough to justify buying. Long, not enough to justify selling. So neutral. And then both corn and beans are unfortunately in downtrends. They are in downtrends. Basis. Let's see if the mic cooperates. In the Eastern Corn Belt, basis levels continue above historic trends for both corn and soybeans. In the Western Corn Belt, in many areas, the soybean basis has improved and is similar to historic seasonal basis levels, but corn basis levels still lag behind historic averages. Technicals do not look good for the corn or the soybean market. The soybean spread between July and November has shown strength The corn spread between July and December is weak, as are most indicators in the corn market. It's uncommon to not get a decent spring rally. Historically, the spring rally is more often than not higher than the winter rally. There are exceptions to that, but that is the norm. It's also not usual to have, kind of Goldilocks rain, at least from a market standpoint. That's what it looks like, which is a little bit of shower, then a little bit of weather to plant, then a little more rain, then a little more weather to plant. So this Goldilocks rainfall combined with fast pace and timely pace on planting, it's very hard to convince the market that it's going to be anything other than a fantastic crop when those are the conditions. The calendar is running against us. We don't have a weather issue now. Now maybe we can get a drought in June or a drought in July that gives us a market rally. All of that's possible. But if we don't get a seasonal scare, if we don't get something out of weather that would nudge us higher, I think it's going to be hard to be too optimistic about price levels. So taking a deep breath, and for this week, no action recommended, but this is a hard call. Calendar's pushing up against us. USDA report next week. If I had to take a guess, I would say the corn and soybean market will mainly be sideways, but slightly stronger coming into that report. And then after that report, man, I sure hope for a rally, but there's no guarantee of that whatsoever. We'll have to kind of see what the forecast looks like and look at those expectations real quickly. It's also important to remember that we have the June 30th report, which is arguably even a bigger deal than the mid-June report. So two big reports in June. Markets closed on the 19th, so there still can be a lot of fireworks, but as long as we have rain forecasted week after week, it looks like good rainfall. Man, it's hard to get markets excited in this atmosphere. Hope you have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week, and let me know if you have any questions.